The tail of the Hawaiian Airlines jet was painted a deep violet, reminiscent of the twilight hues over the Pacific, with the image of a serene woman smiling warmly, a vibrant hibiscus flower tucked gracefully into her flowing dark hair. She embodied the aloha spirit I'd read about in my books, the welcoming essence of love, peace, and compassion that supposedly defined Hawaiian culture. She was smiling. I wasn't. It was August 8th, a sweltering day in Chicago where the air hung heavy with humidity and the faint scent of exhaust from the endless traffic below O'Hare Airport. The line at the gate stretched like an interminable serpent, a flood of tourists pressing their way forward, their excitement palpable in the chatter and laughter that filled the terminal.
I can't wait for that ocean view suite. Mai Tais at sunset.
And the luau, real hula dancers.
Most of the men were heavyset, their bellies protruding over Bermuda shorts in garish patterns of palm trees and surfboards, feet clad in cheap flip-flops that echoed with each step. They carried oversized duffel bags stuffed with snorkel gear and sunscreen, already dreaming of luau's and beachside barbecues. The women, equally enthusiastic, fluttered about in flowing sarongs tied loosely over bikinis, light colorful dresses that swirled like tropical breezes, and straw hats as wide as a ship's porthole, casting shadows over faces hidden behind oversized, round sunglasses. Some adjusted their leis. Those floral garlands I'd learned symbolized affection and welcome in Hawaiian tradition, purchased prematurely from airport gift shops. In short, they looked ready to be welcomed into some five-star resort for their well-deserved, all-inclusive vacation. Their faces beamed with anticipation, prepared to be pampered by white sand beaches, coconut shells in hand, sipping through curly straws the sweet, milky nectar inside, perhaps mixed with rum for that quintessential piña colada. Their suitcases were the size of small cars, wheeled monstrosities, stuffed with clothes they'd probably never wear, spending their entire stay in swimwear, lounging by infinity pools overlooking the ocean. Me? Not at all. I stood apart from the crowd, a solitary figure in the midst of the vibrant chaos. My whole life packed into a 40-liter hiking backpack that had seen better days, scratched and faded from years of use. I didn't need much. Minimalism had become my mantra after the whirlwind of restaurant ownership. I shoved inside, without even folding them, every piece of clothing I owned. 2 white shirts, stained faintly with old sauce splatters from late-night kitchen experiments. A handful of plain t-shirts in shades of green and blue that evoked the Kansas prairies of my childhood. A simple cotton skirt for those rare moments of leisure. And 2 pairs of jeans I'd had for nearly 10 years, bought in a rush back when I moved to Chicago and felt the sudden urge to reinvent myself through shopping. Then I slid in my laptop, the same one that had carried me through endless nights of studying culinary techniques, its screen still bearing a sticker from my alma mater's cooking school. And almost automatically, like clinging to a lifeline amid a storm, I tucked in a photo of me and my mom, taken the day I finally opened my restaurant on Chicago's West Side. We were beaming under the Taste of Joy sign, her arm around my waist, her frail smile lighting up the frame. I'd come from a small town in Kansas, where life moved at the pace of growing seasons, the air thick with the scent of earth and ripening tomatoes. I'd landed in this very airport once before, years ago, brimming with dreams and hope, my suitcase bursting with ambition. My life in Chicago had filled up quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. I managed to get hired as a cook in a 3-star restaurant. An excellent start for a 23-year-old aspiring chef with nothing but a knife set and determination.
Faster, Gordon. That onion won't chop itself.
The kitchen had been my proving ground. The sizzle of pans, the sharp tang of onions caramelizing, the relentless pace that left blisters on my hands and fire in my veins. I'd risen through the ranks, experimenting with fusions of Midwestern comfort food and exotic spices, until Taste of Joy became reality. A cozy spot where patrons lingered over plates of herb-infused roasts and innovative salads.
Boarding Group 3.
But now, I was leaving. Probably for good. The decision hadn't come lightly. It was born from months of soul-searching, soul nights, staring at the ceiling as the city's sirens wailed outside my window. The restaurant's success had peaked, but so had my exhaustion. The constant grind, the pressure to innovate, the hollow feeling that something vital was missing. My clothes looked nothing like those of the other passengers. My jeans were loose on me, almost hanging, a testament to the weight I'd lost from stress and skipped meals. I wore a black tank top that clung to my sweat-dampened skin, and my faithful hiking boots, the same ones that had carried me on so many journeys, from rural Kansas trails to urban food markets, still holding together despite the million steps I'd taken in them. They grounded me, literally and figuratively, in a world that felt increasingly unmoored. The flight would last 8 hours and 55 minutes, an irritatingly endless stretch of time, but necessary to cross the continent and ocean that separated my past from an uncertain future. I was prepared, headphones ready to blast playlists of soothing ocean sounds I'd downloaded. My hoodie tied around my waist. I always wore it, backward during flights. The hood pulled over my face like a cocoon to force sleep amid the cabin's artificial hum. And a couple of well-thumbed books on Hawaiian culture, yellowed pages dating back to before the islands were annexed to the United States in 1898. One book delved into the kapu system, ancient taboos that governed daily life, while another explored the role of Aina, the land, in Hawaiian spirituality, emphasizing how the island's people viewed themselves as stewards rather than owners. I'd highlighted passages about native plants like taro and hibiscus, wondering if they could inspire new recipes, though cooking felt like a distant memory now. Hawaii had been my dream destination since childhood. Back then, I dreamed of an all-inclusive family vacation, too, imagining us building sandcastles on black sand beaches, snorkeling among colorful fish, and attending a luau where hula dancers told stories through graceful movements.
Joy is in the trying, Violet. One day, we'll go to Hawaii. Feel that aloha spirit.
But my father was a humble farmer, growing corn and tomatoes on our modest plot, barely able to cover my education amid fluctuating crop prices and droughts. I only discovered the depth of his sacrifices the day I left home for Chicago. After years of quiet shortages, of wondering why my friends' families jetted off to Disney or the Grand Canyon while ours stayed put, mending fences and harvesting crops, my father handed me a blue envelope tied with a red ribbon. Inside was a handwritten letter, his apology for all I'd gone without, and a check for $200,000. For your dreams, Violet, he'd said,
your dreams,
his voice rough with emotion.
Make us proud.
It was all the missed vacations,
For your
the hand-me-down
dreams,
clothes,
make
the
us
maybe
proud.
next year promises boiled down to a single slip of paper. I forgave him instantly, hugging him tight as the scent of soil clung to his shirt. And I left, promising I wouldn't let him down, carrying that envelope like a talisman into the unknown. Yet here I was, Some sort of vagabond on a plane full of people I had nothing in common with. My backpack a symbol of my stripped-down existence.
First time to Hawaii?
Second, but it's been years.
Lucky you! We're doing the full tourist thing. Volcano hikes, snorkeling, the works. What about you?
Just starting over. I smiled wryly, realizing the jet carried barely any children. Maybe just a couple tucked between parents. Most of these travelers had probably left their kids at home with nannies or grandparents to recharge without the hassle. My father would never have done that. Family was ohana, the Hawaiian word for family that extended beyond blood to community, a concept I'd just begun to appreciate from my reading. We hit a pocket of turbulence midway, the plane dipping slightly, but it was mild, nothing like the storms I'd weathered in life. I remained calm, my mind wandering to Hawaiian folklore I'd read about Kanaloa, the ocean god who controlled the seas and healing through salt water. Perhaps he was watching over us.
Preparing for descent into Honolulu.
The automatic sliding doors opened, and the crowd of tourists rushed madly toward baggage claim, their wheels clicking like a stampede. I, on the other hand, stepped outside into the warm Hawaiian air, scented with plumeria and salt. Honolulu wasn't my final stop. I had to make it to another gate to catch my connection to Hilo International Airport on the Big Island. Pushing my way through the hotel representatives, impeccably dressed in aloha shirts and skirts, waving signs with fancy surnames and luxury resort logos like Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton. Many of them glanced at me, their eyes flickering with judgment, taking in my backpack, boots, and unkempt hair. They didn't say anything, but I could tell. Their gaze slid past me quickly, as if I were invisible. Clearly not the kind of guest they were hunting for. Not the high roller type ready to drop thousands on spa packages.
Aloha. Boarding pass?
The flight to Hilo was nothing like the Chicago-Honolulu stretch. To start with, the plane itself. If the first had been a spacious, modern jet packed with every comfort, reclining seats, in-flight entertainment, even hot towels, this one was more like a beat-up Thai bus with wings, the kind I'd seen in travel documentaries. The seats were tiny, stiff, and barely cushioned with thin foam under what looked like worn carpet stretched over plastic and metal frames. The air inside was musty, with a faint hint of fuel, and the overhead bins creaked as passengers stowed their carry-ons. On the bright side, no one came by to disturb me. The crew stayed seated for most of the trip, only getting up to give safety instructions in both English and Hawaiian, a nod to the island's efforts to preserve their language. The flight lasted just 55 minutes, but it felt like a scenic tour. The plane stayed low, almost as if it were showing off a panoramic view of the Hawaiian Islands. Endless hotels lining white sand beaches crowded with sunbathers. Volcanic peaks shrouded in mist. And the carefree spirit of vacationers so strong it seemed to rise all the way to the sky, like the steam from a fresh Kalua pig roast. But for me, that kind of carefree joy was long gone, replaced by a quiet resolve to find something new. Something healing. Hilo Airport, though technically international, was surprisingly small. The only concrete structures were the terminal and the control tower. Everything else was built in wood, with thatched roofs, evoking traditional hale, Hawaiian houses. A small bar stood by the exit, staffed by two women wearing flower garlands, who waved and smiled at every passerby, calling out, "Aloha!" with genuine warmth. Their leis were made of fresh orchids and tea leaves, symbols of welcome and good luck. Waiting for me was Mr. Davids, a truly fascinating man. He was short, with thick sideburns so full they nearly hid his upper lip, like an old-school British explorer. He wore aviator sunglasses that reflected the tropical sun and a straw hat with a light blue ribbon tied jauntily under his chin. His aloha shirt was patterned with hibiscus flowers, and his khaki shorts revealed tanned legs from years on the island.
Violet, right on time. Let's get you to Hakalau. Hop in.
The moment we drove off, I felt it. The air was different. Gone was the weight of dust, the stench of smog, the curses of bus and taxi drivers honking in gridlock. Here, there was silence. Or rather, only the sound of the wind rustling through palm fronds and the distant rhythm of the sea crashing against lava rocks. Birds chirped. Native species like the apapane, with their red feathers flashing in the sun, and the scent of rain on fertile soil mingled with salt spray. The road stretched straight ahead, the asphalt worn in places, but still smooth enough to drive without rattling too much. Towering palms swayed gently, their fronds whispering secrets, and the greenery was lush and vibrant. Ferns, tea plants, and ohia lehua trees with their red blossoms, sacred in Hawaiian lore as the flower of Pele, the volcano goddess. We passed small roadside stands selling fresh papaya and mango, vendors waving with aloha smiles. Hakalau was barely half an hour's drive from Hilo Airport, but it felt like entering another world. Along the scenic Hamakua coast, with waterfalls tumbling over old bridges and remnants of sugarcane fields from the plantation era. We crossed a wooden and iron bridge that spanned the bay, the structure creaking slightly under the jeep's weight. The waves below rose high and majestic, foaming white against black volcanic rocks, and I leaned out of the jeep to get a better look, but the dense vegetation quickly swallowed the view. Vines and leaves brushing the sides of the vehicle. The moment we arrived, I had second thoughts. Hakalau looked like a ghost village at first glance, with only a handful of houses scattered along a dirt road, though all were lived in, smoke curling from chimneys, laundry flapping on lines. Located on the Hamakua coast, it was once a thriving sugar plantation town until the 1960s, home to immigrants from China, Portugal, and Japan. Now a small community nestled in a 32,733-acre tropical rainforest, full of abundant vegetation and diverse wildlife. I spotted children playing ball right in the middle of the road, their laughter echoing like music. They were a mix of ages, with sun-kissed skin and dark hair, dressed in simple t-shirts and shorts. Mr. Davids honked lightly, and the kids scattered, waving at him with enthusiasm before circling the jeep with giggles. The people of Hakalau had gathered around the jeep. Only then did I realize how wrong and stereotyped my idea of Hawaiians had been. I had always pictured them in grass skirts and flower garlands, like in old movies or tourist brochures. But the people standing before me looked just like regular Americans. Jeans rolled up at the cuffs, flannel shirts untucked, sneakers caked with red dirt. Yet there was a deeper authenticity. Many bore traditional tattoos, Polynesian designs symbolizing family and strength, and their faces reflected a blend of native Hawaiian, Asian, and Portuguese heritage from the island's history. I gave a shy little wave. 10 hours of travel had left me drained. My muscles ached from the cramped seats, my eyes gritty from recycled air. My hair, twisted hastily into a bun, had all but collapsed, and strands now dangled around my face like seaweed hung out to dry in the sun. "Did you have a good trip? Do you need anything?" they asked, their warmth catching me off guard. Not even my first roommates in Chicago had welcomed me like this, with offers of water, fruit, or help unpacking. I nodded, smiling as best I could. "Good morning," I mumbled timidly. Then the men came forward, shaking my hand one by one. They all introduced themselves, though not a single name stuck. I had never been good at remembering names.
I'm sure you'll do just fine here, Violet. I rarely get complaints from my clients.
It's rustic. I looked around, not fully convinced. The walls were paneled in koa wood, rich and reddish, but scarred by time. But like it or not, this was the place I would now call home. My eyes lingered on the details. The salt-eaten wood that could, more or less, be repaired with some sanding and varnish. I walked over to the kitchen window and realized it opened directly onto the sea, framing the bay like a painting. Hakalau's bay stretched barely a couple of miles wide, its waters a gradient of blue from shallow turquoise to deep sapphire. The waves lapped gently against the rocks, as if they had nothing better to do than to caress the shore, waiting for it to move of its own accord. Seabirds, frigate birds with their wide wings, soared overhead, diving occasionally for fish. Out on the water, I spotted a small sailboat, a catamaran, with its twin hulls joined by a narrow deck, sleek as a dolphin's fins. It cut through the sea, light and precise, like a needle slipping through silk. The boy steering it leaned over the edge, tossing breadcrumbs into the waves, perhaps invoking Ku'ula, the ancient fish god from Hawaiian folklore who controlled the abundance of the sea. Raising his arms, he revealed an old harpoon, its tip glinting in the sun. With a swift motion, he cast it into the sea, gripping the rope tied to the boat. Moments later, he hauled in a catch, large fish, their scales flashing silver. He stowed them in a basket, then unfurled the sails and drifted slowly out of sight, leaving ripples that danced toward the shore. An hour later, the moving company arrived with my furniture. Mr. Davids had tracked down a set that had once belonged to an Australian couple, weary of island life and eager to return to Brisbane. The pieces were modest, but beautifully crafted. White wicker and wood, nearly new, with clean lines that would blend with the house's rustic charm. Just a few stubborn stains of paprika and turmeric marked the cutting board and stovetop. Otherwise, everything was in perfect shape. Dressers, a stove, a bed frame, even a large mirror with a carved frame. The problem, however, was solved in less.
Where should we put this, Violet?
In the living room.
I asked where you want it.
Her tone was both commanding and oddly familiar. like a head chef barking orders. For a second, I was back in my apprentice days as a cook, chopping onions under scrutiny. I smiled wistfully, even though that had been one of the lowest points of my life. The endless hours, the burns, the criticism that built my resilience. Mr. David, glancing at his watch, suddenly slapped a hand to his head. "Oh no!" he exclaimed, almost shouting. "It's that late already?" "I'm so sorry, Violet, but I've got to go. You have my number if you need anything." He waved, hurried toward his jeep, and with an apologetic smile said, "See you soon," before driving back toward town, leaving me alone on my porch. I stepped back inside, the house now echoing with quiet. If only someone had told me where to find this Mahina, I muttered to myself, as I often did in moments of solitude, before grabbing my backpack and emptying it into the dresser in my bedroom. I put the t-shirts in the top drawer, folding them neatly this time, the fabrics soft from years of wash. The jeans and skirt went in the bottom, their denim worn but reliable. My underwear went into a box inside the closet, a simple wooden one with carved wave patterns. I had brought only a handful of books, cookbooks I'd had for as long as I could remember from my culinary school days and even earlier, pages dog-eared with notes on flavor profiles and techniques. Then the heaviest object fell onto the floor with a thud. The photograph of my mother and me. We were hugging, standing beneath the sign of my restaurant, Taste of Joy. That's what we had called it, a name inspired by her belief that food should bring happiness. My mother was a short woman with fine, straight blonde hair that caught the light like wheat fields, a sharp nose, and lively blue eyes that sparkled with mischief. She was very thin, with a high-pitched, almost squeaky voice that barely carried over kitchen noise. In other words, if a mischievous gust of wind had tried to whisk her away, it wouldn't have taken much effort. Her frame was delicate, like a bird. I remember my first impression of the new house being one of peace. There was silence, so much silence, so much that the sound of my own thoughts grew unbearable. I wasn't used to it at all. In Chicago, the noise always distracted me. The blare of horns, the chatter of customers, the clang of pots, pulling me away from the things I didn't want to face, like the emptiness after Mom's passing. I decided I needed to go out, to take a short walk, to clear my head. I went down the little slope that separated my house from the main road, the path lined with guava bushes, heavy with fruit. "I'll need a car," was the first thought that came to me. I had enough money to buy a cheap one, maybe third or fourth hand, something reliable for island roads. I wasn't broke. The restaurant sale had left me with savings, but my finances were limited, a far cry from the tourists' lavish budgets. I walked along the road until I came to a bus stop. It looked abandoned. Ivy had taken over the shelter and the bench beneath it, twisting like living art. In some places, hibiscus flowers had bloomed, though the sight surprised me. I leaned closer. It was impossible they had grown out of the ivy itself. I checked to see if they were simply intertwined. As I bent my head, rubbing at the ivy with my hand, a horn honked, making me jolt upright.
Need a ride?
I thought this stop was abandoned.
No, not abandoned. Maybe it looks that way, but isn't it beautiful? Don't you think? The ivy and flowers, nature reclaiming its space, like in the old stories of the Aina healing itself.
Yes, it is. The bus carried me into the center of Hakalau around 4 in the afternoon. The streets were quiet. with only a few people sitting on white plastic chairs on their porches, sipping coffee or playing ukulele softly.
Aloha, new neighbor.
How did you know?
Everyone knows an ohana.
I bought some lettuce, tomatoes, fish, and a few condiments for cooking. After leaving the supermarket, I wandered around the village, taking in the sights. Houses were modest, with gardens growing taro and sweet potatoes, part of traditional Hawaiian agriculture that emphasized sustainability. Chickens pecked at the ground, and a group of elders shared stories under a banyan tree, their voices rising and falling in Hawaiian.
They're few, but enough to keep the village alive.
It's you! Excuse me, I wasn't expecting... You're Mr...
Makawe. Drop the mister. There's no need. We're all friends here. Ohana.
All right, Makawa.
Mahina can't wait to meet you. She would have come herself, but she's waiting for you down by the beach.
I'm sorry, but who is this Mahina?
Mahina is... well, she's kind of like everyone's mother. We told her about you, though of course, as usual, she already knew enough.
Maybe one of these days.
Good day.
Mahina lived in a hut by the bay, down the path toward the sea. A trail lined with naupaka flowers that legend said were lovers separated by the gods. The day was clear, the water calm, sparkling like diamonds. Good morning.
I'm Mahina.
I'm Violet. It's a pleasure. Are you busy? I was hoping to find a car, if possible.
Come on.
I set the bags down on the white wooden table near the great cauldron. My eyes wandered past it, to the cupboard against the wall. There were colorful bottles, each labeled but placed without much order. Some perched precariously between the safety of the shelf and the void below. There were jars of pickled goods, too. Cod, tuna, salmon, but also octopus and squid, preserved with local herbs. I noticed a small box filled with different kinds of lima, seaweed, and 2 large jars with different varieties of rice, including black and red. I walked to one of the windows and looked out. The sky over the sea had already turned to night, the first stars glimmering like diamonds scattered by the gods, while behind me, the sunset painted the island in gold, hues of orange and pink reflecting on the water. I stepped outside. Just a few steps brought me onto the sand, soft and warm underfoot. I slipped off my shoes, letting my feet sink into the grains as I walked to the shoreline, dipping my toes into the water. The cold crept into me, a soothing shock, and I buried my feet in the sand again, feeling the grains shift like therapy. Soon I felt nothing around me but the sound of the waves, rhythmic and eternal. I closed my eyes. I breathed deeply, as if I could leave everything behind, even my own body, floating away like a spirit in Hawaiian legends.
Violet, dear, would you give me a hand in the kitchen? I'm not quite in the mood today.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can.
What do you mean? I thought you were a cook.
I was a chef.
And yet, annoyed you won't cook for me.
I've had some troubles.
Then we can talk about it over a rich plate of food. Use whatever you like.
I could have sworn that wasn't here earlier.
It must have sensed you needed it and rushed to help.
The final touch was fresh tuna, its flesh bright and sea-scented, red like the ohia lehua blossoms. When the octopus was ready, tender but firm, I sliced it, starting with the tentacles, drizzled everything with lemon from a tree outside, and plated it artfully. The dish looked striking. 3 cubes of raw tuna on a skewer, marinated lightly in soy, sesame oil, green onions, and sesame seeds for that authentic ahi poke flavor. A bed of black rice topped with avocado and mango salsa, and octopus to crown the plate, garnished with limu for that oceanic crunch.
You've put effort into this.
Not really. Most of it didn't even need cooking. Just a sample. Enjoy.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for cooking. Good. Delicious.
But
It feels like something is missing.
I think I put everything in.
Why did you come here?
I was tired of Chicago. I needed a break.
Closing a restaurant at the peak of its success isn't exactly taking a break.
I lost my mother 3 months ago.
I'm sorry for your loss, darling.
The restaurant started going downhill too. I had too many responsibilities, both as chef and owner. The staff relied on me, but I was falling apart.
You didn't like cooking?
Not anymore. I don't know. The thing is, I wasn't happy. Then that jerk came along. My God, when I think about it, I want to go back to Chicago and smash his windows.
Who, darling?
Some idiot kid, but with 500,000 followers on social media. He came to eat at my restaurant just days after my mother died. The atmosphere was already black. Staff tiptoeing around me, orders backing up. No one could tell me what to do. My assistants had even asked me to stay home to take care of myself, but I'm not the type, so I went to work anyway. That idiot kept complaining about the wait, the water being too cold, the wine list being unclear about the origin of the wines. Then he takes out his phone and starts a live stream right in the restaurant, telling everyone my place is awful, overrated, bland food, rude service. I lost it and threw him out, using the worst words imaginable according to those present, but I don't remember. The next day, my restaurant had 100 negative reviews on a bunch of websites. They even wrote an article in the paper, calling it Chef's Meltdown. What's so funny?
Nothing. Sorry. It just seems excessive to close over a few mishaps.
A few mishaps? It was my whole life. It doesn't matter anymore. She's gone.
I hope you can rediscover the taste of joy.
I took a small bite, just a taste. For a moment, I was back in Chicago, sitting alone in that quiet apartment where even my best dishes had no flavor. The food was perfect, but I wasn't. I had lost the part of myself that could feel. But here, surrounded by laughter, the ocean, and the scent of fire and salt, I tasted something I'd forgotten. Sitting between Mahina and Makoa as they shared stories of mermaids and voyagers, I realized it wasn't the food that had changed. It was me. This was happiness. Simple, layered, alive. The kind that fills you slowly, like warmth after rain. From that night on, I cooked for the village every evening. We gathered by the fire, telling stories, singing mele, and watching the waves carry our laughter into the stars. And if you ever walk these shores, remember this: joy has a taste. You'll find it here, in the aloha that feeds both body and soul.